This is the Making Waves podcast. My name is Dave Rhoden. We're here with Amanda Radke, talk a little bit about RL21. Welcome, Amanda.
Well, thanks for having me.
Tell us a little bit about yourself. What's your background?
Sure. So I'm from Mitchell, South Dakota. I'm a lifelong farmer, rancher, a small business owner, and a mother of four. My husband, Tyler, and I are active in the cattle business. And then in my professional career, I'm a agricultural writer and speaker, and I travel the country really focusing on agricultural policies and how they impact family farmers and ranchers.
Yeah, I'm subscribed to your Twitter feed, your X feed, and I see your stuff. It's very professional, very well done, very informative.
Thank you.
So how did you get involved with politics and landowners' rights? Give us a little bit of background on that.
Sure. So I've been, like I said, focused in ag policy for close to 20 years now, really paying attention to animal rights activists and environmental extremists that really chip away at our private property rights through their ballot initiatives and the things that they try to squeak through both on a state and national level. And immediately when this project came to the state of South Dakota, it raised an eyebrow for me for multiple reasons. One, I see it's heavily involved and connected with the Green New Deal, and that it's using taxpayer dollars. Really, I mean, let's just be blatantly clear on this. It's not to improve the health of the planet. It is a mechanism for control for that land. And it's really kind of pacifying farmers into taking this deal in order to open the door to that control. But how I got involved in this, I had studied it for a couple years and just really trying to understand all sides of the issue, listening to the voices involved. But what kind of really turned it around for me, realizing I needed to be on the right side of history on this, is I received a phone call from a gal named Rita Brown, who was a elderly widow that Summit Carbon Solutions had targeted. And I spent 2 hours on the phone with her. She cried to me talking about their tactics and how she felt threatened and how they basically said at her dining room table, you either sign this easement or we will force this pipeline on your land without your say. And at that time, I was devastated to hear her story. And she was asking me if I would use my platform to raise awareness. I really try not to be reactive in my reporting. I really try to understand the issue first before I form an opinion. It didn't take long, and then there was an avalanche of calls and more landowners calling me, and I realized this is a bad deal. This is a land grab, and I need to get involved. Fast forward, the right side to be on, even though it kind of alienated me from some agricultural groups I've been associated with my whole life. But when they start making policies that they're okay with mob rule and using eminent domain to take family farms and ranches away from hardworking South Dakotans, the line in the sand was drawn for me. But never in a million years, fast forward to this year, I'm straight east of a Poet ethanol plant. Now that pipeline could go within a half a mile of my house where my children sleep. And so I'm involved in this issue not only from a farmer rancher perspective, but now from a very concerned mother perspective, where I feel like the health and safety and lives of my children are at risk. And so that's kind of what motivates me, is multiple facets. But that's where we've gotten to this point and why I'm so active in this issue.
That's how you got involved, but how did we get here as a state? How did we get to this point where eminent domain is being used to threaten to take people's property and force easements onto people? And how did we get here where taxpayer dollars is being used to impugn people's own property rights?
So it started with Summit Carbon Solutions going, and I really think picking on the wrong people, heading up to Leola, South Dakota, and going onto land of some of the most independent, rugged, tough, hardy cattlemen and farmers I've ever met. Over 150 properties and landowners' properties in suing counties. This is a bad actor bullying their way into the state of South Dakota. And really, I believe they've woken up a sleeping giant of landowners and families and community members and county commissioners and small business owners saying, this is not the South Dakota way. This is not how we treat our neighbor. And we may be open for business in South Dakota, but we are not for sale. And our private property rights are not for sale. And so fast forward to 2024, There was a dozen pipeline-related bills that were introduced in the legislature. Most of them were quickly killed. Some of those bills were incredible bills that would have reformed eminent domain laws in the state. They would have bolstered our private property rights, because I've realized in South Dakota, we have very weak private property rights laws.
That surprised me too.
Yeah, it puts us in a very vulnerable position, and we have no idea. And so those were quickly killed in favor of a trio of pipeline bills that were really pushed forward by the leadership. One of them, 1185, which would have given $500 to legalize trespassing. So if you had a company like Summit come onto your land and say, hey, we want a survey, and you say, no, thank you. Well, our legislative body thought it was okay that as long as they gave us $500, whether you owned a quarter lot in Sioux Falls or 10 sections of ground out by Kadoka, that $500 would be an appropriate payment, a one-time payment for someone, a private company, to trespass on your land. We were vindicated on that. This summer, the South Dakota Supreme Court unanimously ruled that Summit Carbon Solutions had failed to prove it was a commodity or a common carrier, and that they had absolutely no right, no legal right to invade people's property and survey in the way that they have in places like Jared Bosley, where he was absolutely invaded, his property damaged, his wife and kids traumatized. They had absolutely no right to do that. So that was a huge victory on the landowner battle. But the package of bills that came out was 1185, 1186, and then 201. Now, 201 was the big one. 201 claims to be a landowner bill of rights. It offered protections like how deep the pipe would need to be buried, and that we would receive $1 per linear foot, and that there'd be some money for the counties, and that if there were damages, we would be compensated. Many of those things are already laws and rights that we already have. And in fact, it really, as you read it, it really reads like a pipeline bill of rights and really an easement agreement made between legislators and a private company on behalf of landowners. And I long contended that our legislators, that's not their role, and they have absolutely no right to put a dollar amount on our land and tell a company what they think it's worth. I think I'd bet that most farmers, if they had a great attorney, could sit at their dining room table and negotiate their own deals on easement agreements. So it really, a lot of that was just not very good. There was A through M amendments made in a backroom deal. They called it a compromise bill, but none of us were ever invited to the table to be a part of that compromise. Our pleas were ignored, even though we had multiple rallies with hundreds and hundreds of people attending. And all we asked were three things. We asked to maintain our private property rights, to keep local control, and to stop eminent domain for private gain. But instead, we got 201, and they slapped lipstick on the pig, and they called it a landowner bill of rights. And the most egregious part of this entire bill, and the reason that there's so many people involved in this fight, is the stripping away of local control. That it would take away the voices and the decision-making of the 300 plus county commissioners who are acting on behalf of the communities that they represent. It would take away our ability to create ordinances and setbacks for siting and planning of these projects coming through. And never in a million years did I think we would be talking about taking away local control and consolidating it to just three people in Pierre. So that's the outcry that you're seeing. And I'm sorry, this is a long answer to your question, but to kind of wrap it up quickly, where we are now is immediately after the legislature passed RL 21 or SB 201 at the time, and the governor signed it. Volunteers got to work on a referendum. So 500 unpaid volunteers on their own time and own dime in every county in the state of South Dakota, all 66 counties, collected signatures. We needed 17,500 to get on the ballot. We collected over 38,000. And so the outcry by landowners for this landowner bill of rights was huge. And so that's where we are today. RL 21 is on the ballot. It's worth noting it's called the Landowner Bill of Rights. It has multiple topics in the title. It's unconstitutional just at a base level there. But then what's really disingenuous about it is in the description, there's absolutely no mention of losing that local control. And so we are asking people to vote no on RL 21, and we're praying that well-intentioned voters aren't confused by what I see is a pretty disingenuous title and description of this bill.
37,000 signatures on a petition is very impressive. I mean, I've done
90 days.
Yes, exactly. They don't give you a lot of time to do that. And getting that number of signatures in 90 days, where it takes other organizations for other issues a year and a half to get those kind of signatures. Wow. That was a very impressive. I've been involved with petitioning before, and I can tell you that was a huge effort. And moreover, it also shows the strength of the grassroots there. The people are really firing up about this.
Yep.
So I want to also clarify a few points here. When we're talking about taking away local control, what would happen is that the county commissions and your local governments would no longer have authority to regulate pipelines, places that they have control over, and this would bring it to the PUC, Public Utilities Commission. The PUC is not really at blame for this. They're not the ones that brought this forward. They're just being left basically to hold the bag. And also with the PUC, they have to follow the law. You change the law, and the PUC's charged with regulating this stuff. The PUC would have to apply the law as written. So this is really a way to not only take away local control, but also to make the PUC into a rubber stamp for what their future plans are. Do you think that's correct? Is that an accurate way?
Absolutely. It says they must supersede. And so now the burden of proof isn't on a company like Summit Carbon Solutions saying that, yes, we can work within the local ordinances and the communities. Now it's on the community to prove we don't want this here, or we don't want it this close to a school or a daycare or a hospital, and yet now we don't have no say. And I agree with what you said, that this isn't the PUC's fault. I mean, we have a system in place that works. PUC listens to these applications, and they've said repeatedly on this project as well as the proposed navigator, we want to hear from the counties. We want your input. Right. And so when we have multiple counties that set those ordinances, including Sanborn County, where I'm a landowner at, set a 1,500-foot setback. And I had a county commissioner from Sanborn tell me, Amanda, we're going to go write that ordinance, but we know it's not worth the piece of paper it's written on if RL 21 is passed. That's very concerning to me. If I have an issue in my county, I want to be able to go to a local meeting, express my issue, request a course of action, and know I know this person. I see him in my community. If this is passed, if we have a problem, try to get a hold of somebody in Pierre. It becomes a lot tougher to have your voice be heard.
Local governments are the best way of governing. Again, like you mentioned, you know the person down the street. You don't necessarily know somebody that's in Pierre or in Washington, D.C.
Right.
And it seems to me that this is centralization of authority because they want to be authoritarian. Going back to something you said earlier, $500 for the right to trespass on your land, that's almost an insult.
It's absolutely an insult. I couldn't believe it when I heard that's what this whole mentality has been. It's what we heard from Pierre and certain legislators was this project is coming through. There's nothing you can do to stop it. But while we make sure that we grease the wheels for one out-of-state, privately owned corporation with foreign backing, we'll give you a few kernels of grain to keep you guys happy. And it's not about the money. That's all. We hear that all the time. Well, this will bring so much money. To me, as a landowner, I don't work for myself. I work for generations ahead of me to come that I might never meet. That land doesn't have a dollar amount that could possibly even matter to me. There's things more important than money. I think on the money part too, the benefits of this have been way overinflated. I mean, they claim that there's going to be thousands of jobs and all of this money coming into the schools. And the reality is there's a sunset clause on these 45Q tax credits. The gravy train is going to run dry. If we change administrations, the whole emphasis on these Green New Deal, Inflation Reduction Act type programs could also lose much gusto and support from a federal level. There's no doubt in my mind this project wouldn't even be a discussion if it wasn't heavily subsidized by the federal government. It is based on the premise of what I believe is a lie. I think the Green New Deal is a lie. I think burying plant food is a lie, is based on the premise of a bad idea. And we're also finding out there's new technologies coming out like methanol that can be produced right on site that would actually be far more profitable than capturing and sequestering carbon to permanently be stuck in the ground. So to me, it's like, I just think the really great innovators in agricultural and business, we're already seeing that there's opportunities ahead. And what I see this project is as one company trying to get a monopoly on a very valuable deal, but that deal wouldn't be so valuable if it wasn't being, gifted tons of cash from the state and federal government.
I commented some time ago about how, for example, they want to sell this green credits to ethanol in California. Well, California, didn't they mandate that they're going to get rid of gas-powered cars in a couple decades here? It's like, well, okay, there's going to be no green ethanol at all if that continues to be the law in California. So the market itself has been changing and might go away at any time.
Right. Yeah, I can't believe we're negotiating with liberal California policies. The sand it's always going to shift. That's not building a future on a solid foundation. In my work, fighting these climate change extremists and animal rights activists, I've always contended you will never care about your animals or be green enough for people that don't want you to be in business at all. You can't compromise your way out of that. You'll give inch by inch. You'll think you're getting ahead, but they want the whole mile. And the reality is they don't want you. They don't want your ethanol. They don't want farmers in business. They don't care if we have a free and fed nation, but they have figured out they can use these carbon index scores to control independent family farms and ranches. And that's what this is all about.
Amanda, thank you for being with us. Final thoughts.
I'm really encouraging folks to stand alongside the thousands and thousands of South Dakotans who have poured blood, sweat, and tears into this effort, who have gone from town to town trying to spread the word. You'll notice our yellow signs everywhere saying, please vote no for RL 21. If this was truly a Landowner Bill of Rights, it would address eminent domain, and it doesn't. If this was truly a Landowner Bill of Rights, landowners would be happy with it. But the reality is that this is not the South Dakota way. This is the consolidation of government. This is trampling on your private property rights. This is taking away local control. And this is ushering in the Green New Deal into South Dakota. Please vote no on RL 21.
This has been the Making Waves podcast. Thank you for being with us, Amanda.
Thank you.